The moonlight whispered secrets meant only for the shadows, where guilt entwined itself with desire. I thought I could navigate the storm of my choices, but with each lie I wove, the walls began to close in. What happens when the very web you spun starts to unravel in the light of truth? It was a sweet evening in Greenfield Meadows, my quaint suburban neighborhood where charm dripped from every carefully manicured lawn and immaculate home, each a testament to the American dream we all aspired to grasp. The crimson sun dipped below the horizon, painting the clouds in hues of orange and lavender while children across the street laughed, their voices echoing down the block. It was idyllic, almost too perfect, and standing in my modestly decorated living room, surrounded by the remnants of family photos that chronicled too many years of smiles, I found myself feeling more disconnected than ever. My name is Nicholas, and at 45, I should have felt secure in my life. I had a beautiful wife, Lauren, who at 42 was the very heart of our family. Her laughter echoed within these walls like a familiar song, and yet, it felt increasingly distant. Lauren dedicated herself to nurturing our family and advancing her career, pouring her heart into everything she touched. She embodied warmth and strength, often reminding me of the love that had flourished between us in the early days of our marriage. But lately, I struggled to reconcile her unwavering commitment to our life with my own suffocating feelings of restlessness. Entering my 40s had become a lightning storm of existential angst. The truth was, I was lost. Each day blended into the next, a monotonous routine that dulled my senses and dimmed the spark I once carried so fervently. I had become a mere observer in my own life, feeling as though I was navigating a world I no longer belonged to, yearning for authenticity but stifled by the chains of routine. Then there was Mia, my enchanting 20-year-old stepdaughter who had just returned home after a year away at college. She floated into our lives like a burst of sunlight breaking through a heavy cloud. Fresh-faced and exuberant, she embodied everything my life lacked. Mia was the sort of person who could command an audience with her whimsical stories and bright smile. There was something intoxicating about her youthful charm that stirred feelings within me that I'd long neglected. A mix of admiration and an unsettling sense of temptation. My inner turmoil deepened as I noted how she had swiftly captivated not just my attention, but my imagination. One evening, after a family dinner where smiles held the facade of normalcy, I found myself alone in the kitchen with Mia. The scent of rosemary and garlic lingered in the air, remnants of the meal we'd enjoyed together. She stood by the sink, her hair catching the last rays of sunlight as we washed the dishes, light banter filling the void in an otherwise quiet house. "Do you ever wish for something different?" Mia asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. There was a hint of yearning in her expression, mirroring my own hidden desires. I hesitated, considering the boundary I was about to cross. "Every day," I confessed, feeling a wave of risk wash over me. "This life, it's good, but sometimes it feels like I'm stuck in concrete." My heart raced, aware that I was revealing a vulnerability that shouldn't be shared with her. Mia's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Maybe we need to break the mold. What's the point of doing things the same way all the time?" There was an openness in her thoughts, the challenges of adulthood expressed through the lens of rebellion and freedom. As our eyes locked, an electric tension crackled between us, an unspoken acknowledgement of something unusual surfacing. I should have stepped back, recognized the potential danger, but in that charged moment, I felt myself lean closer. Bittersweet temptation proved to be my undoing as my lips met hers, a fleeting dance of recklessness that neither of us discussed afterward. I pulled away, breathless and ashamed, haunted by my actions. My heart raced not just from the kiss, but from the reality of what I'd just done. A visceral moment that ignited the internal conflict I had been trying to bury. As I turned away, guilt coiled my stomach like ivy around a trellis, strangling the sense of security I thought I'd built. The reflection in the kitchen window showed a man teetering on the edge of his own disloyalty, pushing me faster towards the chasm lurking beneath the illusion of my unsuspecting family. The evening had settled in, draping the suburban neighborhood with a warm blanket of twilight. The sun sank slowly behind the perfectly trimmed hedges, casting long shadows against the charming facades of the houses that lined our street. Each home told a story of its own. Manicured lawns speckled with the occasional child's toy, porch lights flickering on as dinner time echoed throughout the community. My own house, modest yet adorned with snapshots of laughter and family milestones, stood as both a monument to my efforts as a husband and father and a facade that concealed the growing cracks within. I shuffled through the living room, the faint sound of laughter from the television mingling with the aroma of roasted chicken wafting from the kitchen. Lauren was in there, focused on culinary magic, her dedication radiating through the open archway. Those smells, so often a source of comfort, now tugged at the strings of guilt nestled deep within me. She wore her usual apron, its floral pattern a testament to her vibrant spirit, and I wondered if my choices had dimmed that light. Shaking my head, I snapped back to the moment, forcing myself to dismiss the gnawing feeling that had taken residence in my chest. "Mia should be here any minute," Lauren called out, a hint of excitement apparent in her voice. It had been weeks since my 20-year-old stepdaughter returned home from college, and despite my twisted emotions, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of joy at the thought of her smile. Mia, with her youthful energy, was like a spark in our otherwise predictable existence. At 20, she seemed to embody everything I craved: laughter, spontaneity, and a carefree thrill that felt all but obliterated from my life. The door creaked open, and in she flowed, a blast of effervescence in a loose sundress that danced around her knees as she entered the living room. "Dad, I'm back," Mia cried, her voice melodic as she rushed over to plant a quick kiss on my cheek. I could smell her perfume, sweet and floral, intoxicating. For a fleeting moment, I felt impossibly alive, the weight of my concealed desires momentarily forgotten in her youthful embrace. We gathered for dinner, the table meticulously set by Lauren, a gesture of love that now came with the fragility of my secret. "How was school? Did you ace your finals?" Lauren's inquiries flowed effortlessly, casting shadows over my thoughts. While they exchanged banter filled with warmth and reassurances, my mind raced with the memories of late-night talks just Mia and I had shared since her return. Those conversations held a texture that felt dangerously intimate, allowing an underlying tension to bubble beneath the surface, igniting a recklessness I wasn't ready to face. As the evening melted into deeper shades of night, laughter echoed in the room, but my heart felt heavier with every smile exchanged. I caught Mia's eyes across the table, just as she flicked a playful strand of hair behind her ear, the movement drawing my gaze against my better judgment. A shiver of something dark and compelling coursed through me, knowledge and ignorance colliding. An inexplicable urge ignited, a dangerous spark hidden under layers of well-reasoned familial loyalty. Finally, as dessert was served and the conversation swept us into joyous anecdotes, I excused myself. "I'll get some coffee," I muttered, the words almost a whisper of denial. As I padded into the kitchen, a concoction of shame and yearning stirred in my mind. It was then, as I poured steaming mugs, that Mia slipped into the kitchen, her presence a sudden whirlwind of color and excitement. "Can I help?" she asked, her voice a low melody, a sweet temptation. As we stood side by side, I felt the intimacy of the moment wrap around us like a vice. The world outside faded to a blur, and in that kitchen the tension suffocated the air. "You know I missed this," she admitted, leaning closer as she reached for a spoon. The heat of her skin brushed against my arm, igniting all the questions I dared not voice. Was this real? Or was I simply craving the thrill of rebellion? Without thinking, I turned to her, drawn in by the fleeting moment between us, and kissed her, an unplanned surge of longing that spiraled into chaos. Time seemed to shatter, leaving only the three of us. Mia, the kitchen, and the ruthless question of what just transpired. Moments later, the weight of my actions crashed down, bringing with it a swift and bitter clarity. I had crossed a line, and the revelation clawed at my throat, rendering me speechless, while shadows of the path ahead began to unfurl. Thick with consequences, the air crackled with tension that night, suffused with unspoken words and heavy silences that seemed to stretch endlessly. My heart raced, not from passion, but from the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I found myself staring into the glossy surface of my whiskey glass, the amber liquid swirling like the maelstrom of emotions inside me. This was no longer a simple dalliance with Mia. It was a spiraling descent into chaos, and I was losing my grip on everything I had ever known. "Nick, is everything okay?" Lauren's voice cut through my fog of guilt, a gentle nudge that intertwined concern with unmistakable anxiety. She stood by the kitchen counter, her hands clasped nervously, illuminated by the soft glow of the pendant lights overhead. I could see the hint of worry in her eyes that made my chest tighten. I forced a smile, trying to mask my internal storm. Yeah, just tired from work. I lied, my words feeling like lead on my tongue. That's what I should have said. What I should always say to quell the insecurities that arose in her. Yet, my heart throbbed in protest, each thump a reminder of the kiss that had shattered our fragile fabric of trust. You've been distant lately, she continued, tilting her head slightly, her gaze penetrating and focused. Are you sure? Lauren, please. The words escaped before I could rein them in. It was the guilt that flew from my mouth, morphing my voice into something sharper, more defensive than I intended. This is ridiculous. I'm just busy. I'm fine. Her brow furrowed with hurt, and I hated myself for it. I wanted to reach out, to touch her cheek, to draw her in and tell her everything would be all right. But the more I tried to pull her closer, the more she recoiled, and I was paralyzed, caught in the throes of my choices. My thoughts drifted to Mia, the kiss that had flashed between us, impulsive and reckless, igniting desires I thought I'd buried long ago. I just want to talk, Nick, Lauren replied, her voice softer now, almost pleading. If there's something bothering you, just tell me. But how could I tell her? How could I reveal the chasm I had opened between us? I had tasted sweetness on the lips of a forbidden dream, and now the bitterness of reality clawed at my heart. I leaned back against the kitchen island, the cool marble pressing into my spine, and I let out a long, shaky breath, fighting the urge to confess everything. I don't want to fight. You know I love you, Lauren, I managed to say, though the words felt hollow against the mounting guilt that festered in my chest. A flicker of doubt passed over her face. I need you to mean that. You sound so disconnected. And there it was, the crux of our conflict. Love, loyalty, and the facade of a perfect marriage collided with the stark reality of my betrayal. Each word I uttered felt like a string being pulled taut until it threatened to snap. I was losing her trust, and in that moment panic surged within me. A part of me desperately wanted to leap from this precipice and confess my sins, but another, darker part craved the thrill of the secret. Just give me some space, I said, the words tumbling from my lips, laced with bitterness as I turned away. The weight of her disappointment lingered in the air. As I retreated to my study, I grappled with the illusion of control I had once felt over my life. I came to realize Mia had become my guilty pleasure, a reckless escape, yet I feared her too. The thrill of her youth was intoxicating, and whenever she smiled, it was as though I were looking into a mirror reflecting back the man I wished I could still be. Free and unencumbered. She embodied everything I craved but couldn't afford to lose. Mia's voice echoed in my mind, light laughter laced with mischief, teasing about the wisdom of old age confronting the spirit of youth. You wouldn't understand, Nick, she would say, brushing her hair back in that playful way, igniting a spark within me that rivaled any kind of joy Lauren and I once shared. My heart raced at the memory, but every exhilaration came with the heavy hand of guilt. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching. It was Mia, her silhouette appearing in the doorway of my sanctuary. Slender and captivating, she looked at me with those big, enchanting eyes that seemed to penetrate my very soul. Can we talk? Her voice was soft yet commanding, a mixture of naivete and the bluntness that only youth can muster. About what? I questioned, my tone guarded as if I were attempting to hide behind an invisible shield. About us, she replied, stepping closer. The space between us felt electrified, two worlds colliding. Mia, we can't do this, I stammered, shaking my head at the very thought. What was I doing? This wasn't just a dance anymore. It was the edge of a cliff. Why not? The kiss didn't seem to bother you then, she said, her voice taking on an edge of defiance, a challenge I felt unraveling the last vestiges of my moral compass. I was confused, I replied, barely able to meet her gaze, knowing each passing second swayed me closer to a path I could not afford to tread. In that moment, I saw my reflection not just in her eyes but in every decision that led us here, teetering on a precipice of emotional devastation. We were both captive to choices that felt pivotal, spiraling toward a confrontation woven with threads of passion, regret, and turmoil. Maybe you need to choose, Nick, Mia said dangerously softly, her eyes fierce, igniting that old spark amidst my confusion. And there it was, an ultimatum I couldn't ignore, a truth that set my heart racing in ways I both relished and feared. What would happen when Lauren inevitably discovered the truth lurking just beneath the surface? What would remain of my crumbling world then? As I stood there, torn between desire and duty, I was left wondering just how far I would go to protect the shattered pieces of my life. My choices could lead to redemption or ruin, and I was the one holding the knife. With every heartbeat, the stakes intensified, and the tempest within me raged on, leaving me pulsing with uncertainty and guilt. I couldn't shake the unease that hung heavily over my shoulders since that kiss with Mia. Each day, the walls of my perfectly constructed life felt as if they were closing in on me, and the more I tried to avoid the truth, the sharper the pain became. Mia was everywhere. Her laughter rang like an unwelcome echo in our home, a stark reminder of my betrayal that I couldn't face. At night, my mind spiraled through endless cycles of guilt and desire, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw the disappointment in Lauren's eyes. The woman who had stood by me through the years. It was during a particularly tense evening that everything began to unravel. Lauren and I had returned from a family gathering, the weight of unspoken words palpable between us. As we descended on our living room, the flickering light from the fireplace illuminated the uncomfortable silence. The family photos, mementos of joy and togetherness, tacked onto the walls now felt like daggers, each image mocking my deteriorating integrity. "Nick, can we talk?" Lauren's voice broke through, tentative but firm. I felt my chest tighten. I could sense the determination in her tone, the hidden hurt behind her eyes. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I forced a smile, trying to mask the dread that churned inside me. "It's just you seem so distant lately. You've been short with me, and I can't shake the feeling that there's something wrong." She searched my face, her brow furrowing in concern. "It's just work, you know how it gets?" I deflected, knowing fully that I was only scratching the surface of the turmoil that bubbled beneath my facade. "But it feels deeper than that, Nick. I want to support you, but I need you to open up," she urged, her voice breaking ever so slightly. At that moment, I felt the swell of impending tears in her eyes, and my heart sank. "I'm fine, really," I said, attempting to keep my tone light, but the crack in my voice betrayed me. "Fine? You haven't been fine in weeks," Lauren shot back, her frustration surfacing. "If there's something more going on, if you're feeling overwhelmed or if something has changed between us, I need you to trust me. I need you to talk to me, Nick." I felt trapped in a corner, the heat rising to my head. "What do you want from me, Lauren? You're acting like I'm about to disappear." "It's just stress, all right? It'll pass." But inside, my heart raged against my own lies, and I felt the sharp sting of betrayal slice deeper when I thought of Mia. "Stress? Is that really it? Because it doesn't feel like that. This isn't the Nick I know." Her jaw tightened. I could see her relentless spirit, an unwavering beacon that had always shone through the darkness of our lives, and I realized I was preparing to extinguish that very light. Just then, the harsh chime of my phone interrupted us. The screen lit up with a message from Mia, and I froze, my heart racing. I could feel Lauren's eyes shift to my phone like a hawk watching its prey. Panic rose within me. How could I explain this? "Who's that?" she asked, her voice low and edged with ice. "It's just a work thing." I stumbled over my words, internally cursing the moment I ever let Mia breach those walls between us. "Just a work thing? There haven't been any work things on your phone during dinner. This feels like more than just work." Lauren stepped closer, determination etched on her features as she reached for my phone. I instinctively moved to block her, but the tension spiraled, our fight turning into a full-blown standoff. "Stop. Just stop." I felt the tempest of anger and desperation mix as Lauren's eyes blazed with realization. "What are you hiding, Nick?" she demanded, her voice rising, now fully revealing the rage simmering beneath her calm exterior. I felt the pressure inside me building like a tide ready to burst. "Nothing. I'm just trying to deal with my—" "No, you're not dealing with anything. You're shoving every painful option into a little box and pretending it doesn't exist." Her voice quivered, but her words cut deeper. "If something is going on, just tell me." Suddenly, the dam broke. I snapped, "Fine. Maybe I'm just tired of pretending everything is perfect." Her silence felt like 1,000 knives piercing through my heart as her shocked expression registered. "Is that really how you feel?" she whispered, almost defeated. Before I could answer, I was swallowed by an overwhelming craving for escape. I needed to breathe, to get away from her watchful gaze. In a fit of impulse, I pulled out of the house and headed to the garage, Desperately fighting the whirlwind my life had become. It was there that I saw Mia. Her approach stealthy, her presence both intoxicating and alarming. Unable to resist the magnetic pull, I moved closer, the conflict brewing anew. I shouldn't have come here, I muttered, yet my heart was racing. Her allure was a siren's song, and all thoughts of consequence flooded out in her presence. "What's going on?" she questioned, her voice smooth yet cautious, an unsettling mix of concern and seduction. "I'm just trying to figure things out," I mumbled. "Figure things out? Don't take too long, Nick." She stepped closer, her scent wrapping around me, intoxicating and dangerous. Time waits for no one. Just then, I glanced nervously toward the house, knowing Lauren could come out any moment. The emotional storm roiling inside bubbled to a frothing peak, as I felt the world about to capsize once again. Then I made a choice, whether right or wrong, it didn't matter. We were close now, entangled in an electric moment that held the weight of secrets and lies. And as the door to my old life began to close, I heard footsteps behind me. A vivid flicker of dread coursed through me. It was Lauren. Would she see the truth in this moment? Would she finally understand the depths of my betrayal? The open question loomed in the air, a suffocating weight between all three of us, hanging precariously on the cusp of revelation. Everything was about to change, and I felt my reality sway like a pendulum tipped toward chaos, teetering on the edge of an abyss without a clear path ahead. The air was thick with unspoken words as Lauren confronted me, her emerald eyes shimmering with a storm of emotions. Clutching my phone, the ultimate symbol of my deceit, she advanced toward me, each step echoing the gravity of the impending confrontation. "Nicholas, what is this?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the tremor of hurt beneath it. I stood there, a deer caught in the headlights of my own terrible choices, feeling the walls of my idyllic life closing in. The messages flashed before me like ghostly reminders of the life I had precariously constructed and was about to destroy. I glanced at the screen, instantly recognizing those playful texts exchanged with Mia, the stepdaughter I had betrayed in the most inconceivable manner. "It's not what you think, Lauren," I stammered, my words faltering against the tidal wave of her disillusionment. "Oh, really?" The sarcasm dripped from her tone like poison. She took a deliberate breath, her composure slipping just enough for me to see the crack in her facade. "What would you have me believe? That you've been emotionally unavailable for weeks because you've been working too hard? Because your life is too boring? How many times do I have to ask you what's wrong before you decide to actually tell me?" Each question cut deeper than the last, digging into the soul of the man I thought I could still pretend to be. I tried to formulate a response that could ease the wild conflict raging in both of us, but the truth clawed its way to the surface despite my best efforts. "Lauren, I made a mistake. It was a stupid fling and A stupid fling," she interrupted, incredulity layered beneath her pain. "You kissed her. You let your lust override your loyalty. How do you think that makes me feel? How do you think Mia feels?" The anguish in her voice twisted my insides. It was no longer just about my infidelity. It was an abyss of shattered loyalty, crumpled trust, and irretrievable love. A wave of guilt washed over me as I caught the glimmer of tears in her eyes. The realization hit me hard. I had not only betrayed her, I had betrayed myself. The core of my identity, once a husband and father, now felt fractured beyond repair. In that blinding moment, I understood the depth of my selfishness. I had pursued a fleeting thrill while failing to acknowledge the love and devotion that had cradled my mundane existence for years. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though it felt inadequate against the vastness of the hurt I had caused. The words hung between us like a fog, almost tangible. My apology was the last remnant of the man I used to be before I lost my way. "You think saying sorry is going to fix this?" Her voice softened, but her resolve remained ironclad. "Do you think that you can just drop some empty words and expect everything to go back to normal? You've stripped me of my faith in you, Nicholas. The thought of you betraying me with someone I've tried to love like my own daughter, it's unbearable." My heart raced, and as I looked into her eyes, I realized we were at a crossroads. I had this fleeting opportunity to be honest about everything, not just my mistake with Mia, but the deeper flaws that gnawed at my spirit and had led me astray. "I thought I could have both." "Both?" she exclaimed, her anger flaring, sparking like fireworks in the night sky. "You thought you could have the perfect life and a fling on the side? Nicholas, how could you be so blind? It was as if the air had left the room. I could not defend my actions, nor did I want to. Instead, a much darker, troubling truth slipped from my lips. I thought I was falling out of love with you. I thought I needed something new. This admission spilled forth, raw and tangled with regret, unveiling every fear I had buried deep within. Lauren's body tensed, and she took a step back, shock and hurt washing over her. You think it's that simple? That love is something you can just throw away because it's not shiny anymore? Don't you see the illusion in your actions? Just because something seems easier doesn't mean it's right. You're not the only one who can feel lost. I felt the weight of her words settling on my chest, a heavy reminder of the painful truth I had tried to ignore. I can't believe I ever thought pursuing pleasure could replace what we built together, I confessed, my voice cracking under the strain of sincerity as the silence enveloped us post-revelation. I caught sight of Mia in my mind's eye, youthful and full of allure, but a reflection of the confusion I had allowed myself to chase. I understood then. The chase wasn't about her, it was about me. I was running from the responsibilities I had grown afraid to face. I need to make this right, I finally said. More to myself than anyone else, as clarity resonated within, breaking through the chaotic storm of emotions. I don't want to lose you, Lauren. We can rebuild this. I will work to become a better man, for us, for our family. Lauren's gaze softened, though the hurt remained. She took a slow, measured breath. That may be true, Nicholas, but this is just the beginning of a long road. Your decisions have consequences, and the price is steep. In this moment of gut-wrenching intensity, I could feel the turning point shifting beneath my feet. I was no longer hiding behind weak excuses. I was staring at the precipice of my own reckoning, ready to confront the monster I had become. It was dawning on me how fragile trust truly was, and as the gravity of my actions sank in, I realized that restoring it would be nothing short of monumental. What remained was the flickering ember of hope, demanding to be nurtured through honest dialogue, painful reflection, and an unwavering commitment. Then let's start talking, I replied, the words tinged with uncertainty, but an understanding blossoming amidst the tumult, a glimmer of the possibility that against all odds, we might yet find our way back to each other. The aftermath of that harrowing confrontation has etched itself deep into my being, each moment echoing with the weight of my choices. Standing in the modest living room that once felt like a sanctuary, I find it almost unrecognizable. The walls, adorned with snapshots of a life filled with laughter and love, now seem to mock me with their innocence. I look at Lauren, her face a mixture of hurt and stoic determination, and I know that the road ahead won't be an easy one. How could you? She asks, her voice steady but laced with oceanic sorrow. I feel a lump in my throat, desperately wanting to hold her, to apologize until my voice is hoarse, but I remain rooted in place, paralyzed by shame. You broke the trust we built over years. I know. I murmur, the reality of my infidelity crushing my spirit. I never wanted to hurt you. But the words dissolve, unworthy of standing against the truth, as the silence nibbles at the edges of our conversation. I realize that my journey toward redemption must begin with my own accountability. I reach for her hand, a tentative gesture of reconciliation. She hesitates, then reluctantly intertwines her fingers with mine, a small but powerful affirmation that she is still here, still willing to try. In the days that follow, we create space for honest dialogue. Each conversation is a stepping stone, uncomfortable yet necessary. It's not just about the affair, Nicholas, she says one evening, her voice trembling yet firm. We lost sight of each other somewhere along the way. Her admission stings, a bitter sweetness emerging amidst my restless thoughts. I nod, recognizing that my infidelity was not only a betrayal but a cry for help, an acknowledgement of the divide that had slowly grown between us. The fact that I had sought excitement in the wrong places reflects the shadows of my discontent. I promise to do better, I reply, the sincerity of the pledge resonating with the gravity of the moment. I want to rebuild our trust. Gradually, the layers of resentment begin to peel away, revealing a foundation trembling yet intact. Therapy becomes our ally. We uncover the love that still lingers beneath the surface. Each session brings us closer, as we learn to communicate, to empathize. I discover the vulnerability that makes true intimacy flourish, realizing that it was never about the thrill I sought, but the connection I lost. Mia too needs closure. I take her aside on a Saturday afternoon, the warm sun providing a stark contrast to the heaviness that hangs between us. Mia, I start as she looks at me with wide, hurt eyes. What happened between us can't continue. We both deserve better. I see the understanding flicker, a spark of maturity amidst the turmoil of youthful allure. You'll always be important to me, I say, but this is where it ends. Watching her walk away, a bittersweet release washes over me. I've chosen to be a better man, a devoted husband and stepfather. I have faced the consequences of my choices head-on, understanding finally that the greatest lesson lies in the fragility of trust and the resilience of love. Reflecting on these moments, I sit in my favorite chair, a book discarded in my lap. The light streaming through the window mirrors the newfound clarity I'll carry forward. I can begin again, not buried in guilt but lifted by the hope that empathy and honesty can restore what was broken. Perhaps now I can truly embrace the man I aspire to be.